All right, settle in. We're cracking open something brand new today, and honestly, as huge fantasy fans, we couldn't be more excited about this one.
Definitely. You've handed us really interesting excerpts from book one of a series called No Gods Before Us, and we're looking at the first part, The Weight of Names.
Yeah, the weight of names. It's like picking up the first book of something that just feels big.
Mhm.
Like when you first opened Gardens of the Moon or maybe The Name of the Wind. You just know there's this vast, complex world humming beneath the surface, waiting for you to figure it out.
Totally. That thrill of stepping into a completely new reality, meeting characters that grab you instantly, and just trying to piece together the rules. How does this place work?
That's the magic, isn't it? And that's basically our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah, figure out who the key players are, what's driving them, their motivations, their fears. Try and piece together the big themes that are starting to emerge.
And hunt for those little clues, right? The hints about this world's history,
Yeah.
where things might be going. It's like we're the advanced scouts mapping the territory for you, so you're not going in totally blind. Okay, so let's dive in. It feels like the focal point, maybe the center of the storm, is this place called the Isle of the Gods.
Right. And on that isle, Mount Olympus.
Not on Olympus, but yeah, not the, Greek myth version.
Mm.
This sounds different. The text calls it a castle, almost an underground lair.
Mm.
That's immediately interesting, that contrast. It
Hmm.
suggests, yeah, power, maybe grandeur, but also isolation, secrecy, maybe even fear, like they're bunkered down.
It definitely feels less like a divine palace and more like a hidden fortress or a command center. Makes you wonder who or what they're hiding from.
And the beings living there, these gods.
Hmm.
The sources are pretty specific. They're not like omnipotent gods.
No, not at all. It says they have long life, 5 times that of the Nashi, and otherworldly knowledge. That gives them a god's-like advantage, quote unquote.
But explicitly not immortal, not all powerful. It feels more like, I don't know, an ancient race.
Hmm.
Maybe like Tolkien's elves, but with a much more pressing biological problem. Long-lived, knowledgeable, but definitely not divine in the classic sense.
Yeah, and that biological problem seems to be the absolute core issue on the Isle. They're facing extinction because of infertility.
Right. Abilene. She's the last goddess who can still have children. And her potential death isn't just sad. The text says it's the trigger for war, explicitly.
That vulnerability is huge. It just grounds them completely. They're not these distant, untouchable beings. They're powerful, sure, but they're also flawed rulers staring down the very real possibility of their entire line, maybe their whole species, just ending.
It puts their power in a totally different light. It's tied to knowledge, maybe tech, but it's fundamentally limited by their own biology. That's a great twist.
And the names. Did you notice the names? Barton, Thaddeus, Ephraim, Abraham. They're so ordinary.
Yeah, it's almost jarring, isn't it, for beings called gods? It immediately tells you something's different here.
Totally subverts expectations. And they have personalities, too. Barton's bored. Thaddeus is the stern archivist, guarding knowledge. Ephraim sounds like a real piece of work. Cruel, quick-tempered, childish.
And Abraham, X's father, the one with the long white beard and crimson robe, radiating that fatherly disappointment. These aren't abstract concepts, they're characters, flawed individuals.
And serving them, or connected to them, are the mortadels.
Right. Defined as the barren offspring of gods and homonashi. So half god, half human, basically. We meet C, who's a scribe, and X, who seems to be our main viewpoint character on the Isle.
Their whole purpose, it seems, is to serve the gods, often with specialized skills. Like X and C are linguists, which is interesting in itself, right? Dealing with ancient beings, different cultures.
But Abraham, X's dad, clearly wanted him doing science. That's a big source of tension right there.
And the barrenness, it's not just a trait, it's central to the whole plot. The gods' big scientific mission is to cure mortadel infertility first, hoping that breakthrough can then save the goddesses.
Wow, so the mortadels literally embody the same existential threat facing the gods. That's poignant.
It really is. In a lot of fantasy, half-bloods often have unique powers caught between worlds, like, Elrond or someone. But here, being defined by barrenness, that adds this really unique kind of tragic layer. It implies they're maybe seen as lesser, a dead end. Hints of prejudice come up later with Greta and Isabel, too.
Which brings us right to X,
Yeah.
son of Abraham. And man, this story throws you right into his head, doesn't it? Thinking about escaping back to the Forestian valleys, haunted by wildflowers, feeling that invisible leash of duty.
Yeah, you feel his struggle immediately. His background, his passion, his languages, exploring Forestian cultures, something his father totally dismissed as gallivanting.
Classic fantasy setup, right? The protagonist burdened by expectation, by destiny, when their real passion lies elsewhere. It makes me think of, I don't know, maybe Ged in Earthsea, wrestling with his power and responsibility.
Definitely. And now that leash has yanked him back hard. He's on this huge mission. Find the source of this Mortadell mother rumor, cure infertility, save the gods. But he is so clearly conflicted.
Oh, absolutely. Duty versus freedom. Serving these gods he seems pretty disillusioned with versus his own values, trying to get his dad's approval while feeling totally unseen.
The writing really emphasizes it, too. The little details, the sigh, the pale finger on the turtleneck standing on his well-worn mark in that awful hearing room.
Feeling like a shunned son.
Feeling like a soul without a home, where every space feels borrowed, it paints such a clear picture of his internal state. He's displaced, burdened.
But he's sharp, too. A keen observer. That comes from his language background, probably. Noticing details like in the pub or Barton's finger pausing in the hearing.
And his description, 6 foot down to 5'10" and 34, which is such a specific, slightly insecure-sounding detail, and the violet eyes, which, crucially, the Forestians see as a mark of the beast. So he's marked as other everywhere he goes.
In his mission. So far, total disaster. Lucas's experiments failed, people died, other mortadells cost millions. He hasn't found the source of the rumor.
His view on the Forestians is complicated, too. He used to defend them, but their recent actions, the unification, spreading the rumor, make it hard. But he gets them. He understands their ways, like that Lady of Giant Meadow example shows.
And what's the first thing he does after reporting his failure in the hearing room?
Goes to the pub,
Yeah.
instead of straight to Lucas's house like he's supposed to.
It's a small thing, but it feels significant. A tiny act of rebellion, choosing his own path, even for an hour. He feels like that classic reluctant hero, doesn't he? Caught between worlds, saddled with this immense task he maybe doesn't even believe in.
Yeah, definitely. His struggle against his father, against his assigned role, feels like it's going to be a major part of his arc.
And that hearing room scene really lays it all out. X just says she died. Stark. Brutal.
And the gods' reactions tell you everything. Ephron immediately wants torture and public humiliation. Pure rage.
Thaddeus tries to keep things calm, maintain order. Barton is just bored, checked out.
And Abraham. Just that crushing, familiar disappointment aimed at X. It's such a dysfunctional dynamic.
Versus Thaddeus telling C to sanitize the command, for the record.
Right. That detail about C sanitizing the command is fascinating. Ephraim is all raw power, wanting a spectacle. Thaddeus, even though they answer to no one, he cares about appearances, about the historical record. How will this look later?
It shows a crack in their supposed absolute authority. They're worried about perception, at least Thaddeus is.
And Lucas being sick, absent from the labs for months, that adds another layer. This isn't a sudden problem. It's been hindering the research.
But yeah, the overwhelming feeling from that Council of Gods is dysfunction, fear, frustration, boredom, cruelty, disappointment. They feel very, very human in their flaws.
Okay, so that's the aisle. Power fading, desperate, clinging on. Now let's shift focus, because the sources take us across the land to the forest, and the contrast is stark.
Oh yeah, this isn't decline, this is rise, expansion, ambition.
We meet Curly Wilhelm, who's technically the unifier of the forest tribes, the figurehead.
But the real engine, the text makes clear, is Alex de Schoenvlast, Alex the Great. He's the power behind the throne.
Since 873, apparently, he's the Curly's bondsman, so not the official ruler, but the sources say he never signed an order yet captained everything, running the whole show from behind the scenes.
He feels like a classic master manipulator archetype, doesn't he? Like maybe Littlefinger or Varys from Game of Thrones, but with serious military chops too. He pulled off this unification in under 10 years using diplomacy, war, manipulation, the whole toolkit.
Yeah, ruthless and effective. The conquest of the Forgotten Forest, defeating Thorn Blackwood used as examples. And key detail, innovative weaponry, thanks to Richter, plus merciless battle tactics. And his preferred name for the unified lands, the Collective, not just forest.
Right. That feels significant. Emphasizing the people, the unified entity, not just the place. Like he's building a nation, an ideology, not just conquering land. Focus on organization, political power.
And his key partner in crime or conquest is Richter, Rick, the commanding general.
She sounds awesome, honestly. Impatient with peacetime stuff, prefers fighting or partying. Foul-mouthed that nipples are fucking icicles line is memorable.
Yeah, maniacally brilliant sword. Deep respect for Alex, despite the personality clash maybe.
And the dynamic between them. The height difference, him 6'4", her 5'4". The mistaken stereotype that he's the talker, she's the muscle.
Right. But the text shows their banter, like in that scene picking ponies. She calls out the pony's legs being bigger than his head. He admits he lies many times. There's a real connection there, shorthand.
Yeah, it makes him feel more real than just conqueror in general. She's a formidable warrior, sure, maybe with a grimdark edge, but that loyalty and teasing banter with Alex grounds her.
So, this collective, led by Alex, what's their ultimate goal?
Conquer the Isle of the Gods. Simple as that. Aiming right for the heart of the old power structure.
And the Mortadell mother rumor, the Thing X, is chasing. It's central to Alex's strategy, but in a really interesting, evolving way.
Yeah, he started the rumor. Sent it over the mountains 3 years ago, specifically to mess with the gods.
Mm.
It was pure strategic disinformation.
Yeah.
A weaponized lie.
And it's dangerous to the gods for exactly the reasons Alex intended. It suggests a scientific breakthrough they failed at, undermining their whole otherworldly knowledge advantage.
Plus, it's a rallying cry for the Forestians, right? Thaddeus worries it could unleash Forestian rebels, raising the world. It justifies their expansionist aims.
But here's the twist. Alex's view has shifted. It started as a useful lie, a distraction while he finished unifying the forest.
But now, with unification done,
Now he's thinking, what if it's real? He wonders if this mythical mother and her breakthrough might actually be the last advantage he needs to take the Isle.
that's brilliant. So ruthless. The propaganda might actually become the key military objective if it turns out to be true. He'll use anything.
It perfectly highlights the contrast. The Isle, defensive, navel-gazing, obsessed with their own survival. The Forest Collective, offensive, expansionist, masterfully using information warfare and actual warfare.
And that rumor is the thread connecting them. A threat to the gods, a mission for X, a tool turned to potential target for Alex, layers upon layers.
So we have these two big opposing forces, but the world feels much bigger than just them. These excerpts introduce other key players, other regions, and sprinkle in all sorts of intriguing clues.
Totally. Like Greta. She's fascinating. Abraham's Mortadell daughter, X's sister. Head healer on the Isle for a century. Wise, educated, apprenticed globally. Which tells you there is a wider world out there.
And her relationship with Abraham is totally different from X's. It's described as close, loving, loyal. He championed her tirelessly, uses her full name. It adds complexity to Abraham, shows maybe Mortadells aren't all treated the same, even by him.
But her relationship with Abilene, the goddess, oof, sounds awful. Abilene hated her, was jealous of Greta's barrenness, can you imagine? Called her names, wanted her replaced.
Yeah, Greta served her dutifully.
Greta is secretly grateful she's barren. She sees it as a curse she was spared.
Mind-blowing, right. In a world obsessed with fertility and lineage, especially on the Isle, that perspective is revolutionary. It completely flips the script on the Mortadell condition, gives her this hidden depth.
She's currently trying to save Abilene with old Western herb remedies, connecting her directly to that central crisis. But she's skeptical of the Mortadell mother, calls it a farce. Doubts Lucas's genius because, well, he failed. Her view of X is pretty harsh, though. Stain on their important name. His mission, a fool's errand, adds another perspective on him.
And that little moment where she pantomimes pregnancy and finds it absurd, so telling. Greta feels like this anchor of quiet strength, complex loyalty, and a really unique hidden wisdom, very different from the gods.
Okay, then we jump somewhere totally different. The South Sands, isolated region, harsh climate, Hidden Valley stronghold, a whole new culture.
With his own history, the Peace Compact from way back in 426, they petitioned the gods for isolationism to stop the kidnapping and slavery of Alsabak girls.
And the price. Matching 10 pledged daughters, 2 from each kingdom to outsiders, to ensure safety, trade, survival.
And that cynical nickname the text mentions, the Peace for Pussy Pact, ERG, immediately tells you how fraught and potentially exploitative that arrangement is viewed, even if it was seen as necessary protection. Dark stuff.
Sisseton seems to be a leader there, focused on protecting her people, her family, and she gets bad news. Mappers spotted south of the Quirm River, across the border.
Which means?
Declaration of war, violation of the compact. The details are specific. 2 mappers, Eridorn, transport some kind of creature maybe?
Right.
Resting in Eden, which is apparently a known trap. It feels like a deliberate probe, an invasion.
And the timing is terrible. It's when families gather for the pledge selections, making them vulnerable. Plus, it coincides with the news about Abilene being sick.
Right. Abilene was their advocate on the Isle. Her being out of commission leaves the South Sands politically exposed. Sisseton's worried. She also has a personal stake, 2 daughters matched, hoping the last one, Ren, can stay.
And that detail about Hoping Wren's darker complexion and red hair might make her less desirable than someone with pure old blood. More hints about prejudice, lineage, appearance being currency.
They have defenses, though. Miroxen faster than Eridorn's, they glide. The Eden trap, a tremor alert system. But Sisten's still anxious, hoping the mappers just keep moving, don't look up. It shows how fragile their security feels. The South Sands add this whole other dimension, a unique culture trying to stay out of the big conflicts, but getting dragged in.
And then, another jump. To the Sea Kingdom, shores of seaside, opulent palace, Queen Fatum, another totally distinct society.
Yeah, and this one's wild. It's based on sanguinity, your percentage of God DNA.
Septec, 70–80%. The Fatums are the highest.
Hi there, little interlude from the author on this. So this whole section features royalty called the Fatums. And you have Queen Fatum, and then you have Princess Fatum the 22nd, and then Princess Fatum the 23rd, her daughter. So this is a grandmother, daughter, granddaughter situation. And 22 and 23 I have in the manuscript as Roman numerals. And the AI, the bots, they did not pick up what I was putting down. And so it's a little bit confusing, but essentially what you're about to hear is they say Fatum the XC a lot. XC third. XC is 20. When you hear XC, just think of it as 23rd. That's going to be the granddaughter. Hopefully it's not too confusing, but it probably is. And for that, I apologize. I'm doing my best. Okay? Thanks. Bye.
Fatum XC3 is 96.45%. And high sanguinity gives you literal advantages. Intelligence, long life, connections. It's like sci-fi eugenics mixed with fantasy royalty.
We follow Love's Septec cult, a Maxwell, Axiophilip, a Magus VP.
Yeah.
Love the name structure, tells you lineage is everything. He's a Septec, 78.2%, trying to climb the ladder.
Yeah. His big job is organizing the World Fair welcome ball. This isn't just any party. It's for Fatum XC3's grand unmasking, her debut. And the text explicitly says the event is about the Sea Kingdom asserting power, positioning themselves to inherit if the gods on the Isle die out. Politics via party planning.
And Love's personal ambition is tied right into it. He wants to snag an oak deck womb, marry high status to boost his family's legacy. He sees himself as just a rung on that ladder.
The pressure on him is immense. His whole life could fall apart. Failure means demotion to toilet steward or factory work. That desperation makes him incredibly relatable, even in this bizarre system. It's a different kind of fantasy struggle, social survival.
We get glimpses of the Fatums, the Queen, and Fatum XC3, the future Queen, maybe kinder, rebellious, wears a mask.
Yeah.
The detail about needing rare hyacinths from Death's Peak for the ball.
Yeah. And nightmare logistics for love, but also symbolizes the Fatum status, their demand for rarity, like Fatum XC3 herself, who's kept hidden.
And the contrast between Fatum XC10 dismissing them as weeds and Fatum XC3 spinning it into this beautiful vision shows the family dynamics, the political games.
Love's brief interaction, maybe imagined, with Fatum XC3, her touch, the whispered, "Breathe, love, please," adds that personal hope, that hint of something more.
Plus, his mentor Bradford's cynical advice, never speak with definitiveness. And that saying, the sea's favor often comes with an undertow. Perfect. Love's story has this whole layer of social maneuvering and ambition distinct from the Isle's crisis or the forest's conquest.
And woven through all these locations and characters are these really intriguing clues about the world itself. History, technology, mysteries.
Yeah, the tech is fascinating. Telephones, word processors, unreleased tech C uses, cameras, motion pictures suggested for the fair. But then you also have castles, swords, maybe those air-adorned creatures.
It's not straight medieval fantasy, is it? It feels like pockets of advancement, maybe leftover tech, controlled tech. It really messes with your expectations of the setting, kind of science fantasy almost.
The World Fair itself feels like a key piece. Global event, people traveling 4 days to get there, a place for invention displays, but clearly also a political hotspot. You just know things are going to go down there, all these factions converging.
And the hints about deeper history are tantalizing. Thaddeus talks about the ancient civilization from which their species came. Alex calls the previous inhabitants who named the forest usurpers.
Right. Suggests a whole layer of forgotten or contested history underpinning everything. Classic, epic fantasy world building, giving depth to the current conflicts. These aren't random wars. They're echoes of the past.
Then the specific mysteries. Thaddeus's box, hidden in a bunker within a bunker, contains inventions, medicines, weapons, his last line of defense if X fails, Pure MacGuffin potential. What's in the box?
And Forget-Me-Not, the mythical memory-wiping poison. Alex wants it, but it's cloaked in mystery, hidden on the aisle. Imagine getting your hands on that.
These specific things in the box, Forget-Me-Not, the ancient civilization, they're hooks. They promise big reveals, future conflicts, things for characters to chase.
So you've got all these pieces, the fading isle, the rising forest, the isolated South Sands, the hierarchical sea kingdom, plus these tech and history clues. But they're not separate stories. They're starting to weave together.
Oh, absolutely. The connections are already clear. The Isle's infertility crisis drives X's mission, which is all about the rumor Alex started in the forest.
Abilene's illness on the Isle directly impacts the South Sands security and influences the Sea Kingdom's political maneuvering at the World Fair.
The forest's ambition to conquer the Isle is the main engine, threatening global chaos, according to Thaddeus.
The World Fair looks like the stage where everyone might collide. Isle, Thaddeus, Forest, Alex Richter, spies. Sea Kingdom, maybe others. It's a powder keg.
And that Mortadell mother rumor touches everyone. X pursues it, duty, Alex uses it, strategy, Greta doubts it, skepticism, Isabel claims it, mystery. It's the central knot tying so many threads.
Yeah, it's not just parallel plots. Everything seems to be reacting to or driving this central crisis of the gods' decline and the resulting power vacuum. It feels properly epic in scope already.
And through it all, these really strong themes start coming through, like the title itself, The Weight of Names.
Seriously, that title hits hard. It applies to almost everyone. X feels crushed by his father's name and expectations, feels like a stain. Greta is championed by Abraham's name, but hides her true feelings about her own condition.
The gods are desperately trying to uphold their name, their lineage, connected to that ancient civilization. Alex literally renames the forest the collective to impose a new identity, rejecting the usurper's name. It's all about names, labels, identity, expectation.
Legacy and extinction, too. Huge for the gods, obviously.
Right.
Their fear drives everything. But then Alex is trying to build a new legacy. The collective. What even is legacy here? Blood, power, knowledge.
Yeah.
A unified people.
And truth versus deception. Man, it's everywhere. The rumor itself, true, false. Alex's manipulation, Isabel's claim, Lucas's situation, Greta's secret. Abraham hiding Abilene's illness. Who can you possibly trust? It feels like information itself is a weapon.
Knowledge is power here, maybe more than magic. The gods have otherworldly knowledge. Thaddeus guards the archive, the box of inventions. The forest wants that edge, the Mortadell breakthrough, forget-me-nots. Controlling information seems key.
Duty versus freedom, that's X's core struggle, but it resonates elsewhere too. And finally, change versus resistance. The forest pushing for radical change. The Isle resisting, clinging on. The South Sands trying to resist encroachment. Individuals resisting their assigned roles. It's a world on the brink of massive upheaval.
These themes aren't just background noise. They're driving the characters, shaping the conflicts. It feels like a really rich tapestry. It reminded me of why I love fantasy that tackles big questions, like Le Guin or Sanderson. That title, The Weight of Names, just unlocks so much of it.
Absolutely. So, looking at the characters introduced so far, who are you most intrigued by? Who are you desperate to know more about?
Oh, it's got to be X for me. His internal conflict is just so well drawn. He's got these skills, languages, observation, cultural understanding that should be valuable, right? Especially to these ancient gods. But he feels like a failure because he didn't follow the science path his father wanted.
Yeah, that tension is great.
And seeing him go from feeling bound by that leash of duty to that flash of rebellion, I'll give him a real reason to chastise me. I just want to see where that goes. Is he going to step up, find his own way? Plus, his internal monologue is just sharp and cynical enough to be really engaging. I'm invested.
I get that. For me, Alex the Great is magnetic. He's achieved so much, so fast, pulling the strings. That dynamic with Richter adds so much. It's not just a conqueror, there's personality there. But what's his endgame? Is the collective just a power grab or something more? What's the deal with the usurpers? There's a depth hinted at there, beyond just ambition, that I really want to understand. He's got that dangerous charisma.
Okay, fair. And Isabel? What's her deal? If she's telling the truth, she holds the key to everything. But is she? Or is she playing her own game? I need answers. And I have a soft spot for love in the Sea Kingdom. His struggle feels so mundane in a way, but the stakes are incredibly high for him. Navigating that brutal social hierarchy based on blood percentage, his anxieties, ambition for his family is relatable, and that little hint of connection with Photom XE3 adds a nice personal wrinkle. Will he succeed? Will he crash and burn?
Definitely. So many compelling figures already, and the questions left hanging. Oh boy.
Right. Like, Is the Mortadell mother real? A single person?
Hmm.
Will Abilene die? What happens the moment she does? Domino effect.
What is in the box? Seriously, Thaddeus's box of inventions. What power does it hold? And what about that ancient civilization?
Is the World Fair going to be the big showdown where all these paths cross? Seems likely.
And the biggest ones. What will X do? Fulfill the mission. Rebel. Find a third way.
Yeah.
And what happens if the gods do go extinct? Who fills that void? Who gets the knowledge, the power?
Man, it just feels like the start of something huge, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Multiple plot lines converging, complex characters you already care about or are fascinated by, deep mysteries baked into the world.
Yeah, it has that buzz, that feeling you get when you finish the first book of a series you know you're going to love. The world feels rich, the stakes feel high, the characters feel real. It's got all the ingredients.
Totally agree. Okay, so we've dug into these excerpts, pulled out the key players, the locations, the conflicts, the clues. We've mapped the terrain a bit, and hopefully doing this deep dive, breaking it down, finding those connections.
Yeah, you understand the stakes, the gods' desperation, the forest's ambition, the precarious situations in the South Sands and the Sea Kingdom. You see how they're all linked, and you get a feel for the personal struggles of characters like X, Alex, Greta, Sistanin, Love, caught up in these larger events.
Right. So let's wrap this up. Here's something to chew on. Connects back to one of those big themes. Legacy. We see it everywhere, right? The gods fighting extinction to preserve theirs, Alex forging a new one with the collective, Love desperately trying to secure his family's legacy, X burdened by his name. In a world like this, what do you think makes a legacy truly last? Is it bloodline? Is it power? Is it knowledge? Or is it something else entirely?
Ooh, good question. Definitely something central to what these characters are wrestling with.
Until the next deep dive.